We're live.
Mr. Richardson, thank you for joining us today. We are students at James Workman Middle School in 3 6th grade classes, and this week we're learning about coding, which we refer to as the Hour of Code. So our students have been doing some block coding and some very simple Python coding, and they have prepared some questions for you because we are investigating coding. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, of course, of course.
Would you mind maybe sharing a little bit about your job and how coding figures into that and kind of your career path for us?
Sure. So let me tell you about how I got started. I started working at a company that had marketing websites. So I started building web pages in languages like HTML, you might have heard of in the past. That's one of the main languages of the web. I started designing websites, building web pages, designing small websites for lots of companies, and now I work for a company called TitleXI, and I build legal and banking software for the bankruptcy industry. So our users can log on and manage their bank accounts, all of their money's there, and all of their cases that they have for their work. So I build management applications is what I do. In the programming world, if any of you decide to go into programming, there's a few different routes that you can take. There are front-end developers and there are back-end developers. I happen to be a front-end developer, which means that I'm more interested in kind of the artsy-fartsy stuff of programming. I'm interested in how things feel, how they work, how they touch. When you use your iPad, you touch the screen. How do buttons interact? How do forms interact? How do you upload pictures? How do you view content? That's what I do. Then you have other people who are back-end developers, and they deal with databases and the management of large-scale data. And so you have these different developers, and they kind of work together. So anyway, there's a brief introduction on what I do. Do we want to start some questions? It looks like Tara Baldwin was removed from the call.
Yeah, she is dividing her class between our 2 rooms because we're having some technical difficulties.
Okay.
So, you're okay. Keep going.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. Anyways, I work mostly in web applications, meaning software that you view on the computer through your internet browser, whether you use Firefox or Google Chrome. I work in HTML and JavaScript and CSS. I also work with C#. I also work with PHP a bit. So there's a few buzzwords with you. I've worked a little bit with Python, but I actually don't touch Python much myself. But code.org, where you guys go to learn, I believe it is, that's a website. That's the type of website that I would work on or build, for example.
Well,
so that's a bit about me. Jessica, you want to take it from there?
Oh, sure. Thank you. We will go ahead and open up for some questions. We'll start with a question from my class. So we'll start with Anna. Anna, you want to go ahead?
Do you use block coding, or do you write coding out the long way using Python?
Can you ask that one more time? I didn't quite hear you.
Do you use block coding, or do you write coding out the long way using Python?
I write everything out the long way. I work in such a large application that it's important to write each individual line of code so that I can optimize it. So I don't use Python coding. I use some other languages that are similar, but I'm familiar with both block coding and long coding like you're talking about.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and go to someone from Ms. Baldwin's class. Is someone in here with a question from her class? Okay, he's going to make his way up and ask. And then Mrs. Zimmerman is getting someone ready, I think, as well.
Okay, sorry.
What sparked your interest in coding?
What sparked my interest in code? Okay, well, first of all, I didn't become a programmer because I wanted to become a programmer. My career path was a little bit indirect. I wanted to start off with becoming a mechanical engineer. I wanted to design car engines. But I started working at a place to pay my bills through college, and I started getting into programming, and I enjoyed the challenge of it. I enjoyed learning, and I enjoyed creating something. So one of the things that's really fun about programming is that you get to create every day. You problem solve and you create, and the job is very rewarding. So what I would tell you kids is if you decide to get into programming and coding, it can be very challenging. It can be very frustrating sometimes, but it's one of the most rewarding career paths that I would say that you can go after today because you get to create, and it's awesome. So that's kind of what sparks my interest.
Thank you. Now someone from Ms. Zimmerman's class.
What was the first thing you coded?
Let's see. The first thing I coded was an HTML web page. Very simple, but I got to get my hands dirty a little bit, and I started just making simple HTML pages, and they got more and more complex and cooler as time went on.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right, and we'll go back to my class. Nalissa, why don't you ask your question?
Was it hard to code when you first started, and is it still challenging today?
So yes and yes. I would say when I first started coding, it was very challenging to me. I work with a lot of people that seem to pick it up quicker than I did, which was also hard for me at first because I saw other people excelling at it, and I was having a harder time picking it up. But you know, most people can pick it up if they put in the work and the drive that it takes. So anyways, I started to learn more and more as time went on. Now I have a lot more confidence when I'm programming because I know concepts that I didn't know before. But I still run into challenges that are much more difficult challenges that I never would have dealt with before. So if you enter into a career in programming, you'll find that if you're doing it right, you're always learning, and you try to learn something every day, and you're always challenging yourself. Just like with school, if you're doing well in school, you're challenging yourself every day, and you're learning every day. It's just like that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go over to Ms. Zimmerman's room again.
What are some flaws that you have experienced with coding?
I would say the biggest flaw in coding is myself. I write code sometimes, and I leave myself little treats, little bugs that I have to go and fix later. So the computer is always honest with you. It's always straightforward. But sometimes when you're writing code, you write something that's bad, and sometimes you have to kind of bang your head against the wall for a few hours and figure out what you did wrong. So usually the culprit is you and your code. That's the thing that I've learned over time.
Thank you. And we'll come back over here for a question from one of Miss Baldwin's students.
How old were you when you became interested in coding?
Let's see, I was about 19 or 20 years old when I started coding. So I kind of got a late start. I do have some friends that are co-workers that actually got started when they're a little bit closer to your age. I have one friend who started programming when he was 13 or 14 years old, and that was really good for him because that helped him get a jump start. in the programming world, and he was able to start taking jobs sooner and start working on cool projects a lot sooner in life. So I started with when I was 20, but I would really encourage you kids, if you're interested, to get started now. Keep on with code.org and other learning resources, and you'll appreciate it later in life.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go ahead and go to one of my students. Let's hear from Jimmy.
How does coding help people, and what can coding do to change someone's life?
Interesting question. Let's see. Everything that you guys are doing on your computers in that classroom, I see, all of you are on your computers. That's because there was someone who programmed something behind the scenes to create a useful tool for you to use. So whether that's a organizational tool, or a learning tool, or a game that you guys enjoy playing on your computer or your iPad or your iPhone or something like that, that's all programmed. Every single time your parents get in the car and drive and they use a GPS navigation, that's all a result of programmers creating a whole digital world of tools and things for you to use. So it makes a lot of people's lives easier because they can access information on the fly, they can manage their thoughts on the fly, and they can enjoy watching Netflix or media on the computer, that kind of stuff. So making people happier and giving them something to enjoy and making their work life easier. That's what programmers do.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Ms. Zimmerman's room.
How does coding help educate and teach something new to students?
I was thinking about that this morning over a cup of coffee. Programming has changed the way that I think in a few ways. I would say for me, I'm a spatial thinker, so I like to think of how things fit together, how they're organized, etc. So when I started programming and I started dealing with data, when I started programming, it helped me start to organize thoughts in my head. I learned to become a better thinker. Through the process of learning to program or code, I learned how to learn better. So I would encourage you kids, if you begin coding, it's going to help you learn more up here. And that's not just with coding, that's with math, that's with English, that's with science. All the full spectrum of everything you guys learn, coding will help you learn better, generally speaking. And it's fun too.
Thank you. We have a question from Emily from Ms. Baldwin's class.
What influenced you in your career choice?
I'm sorry, can you ask that again? I didn't hear that.
What influenced you in your career?
Jessica, can you help out with that? What influenced what?
What influenced you in your career choice?
Oh, what influenced my career choice? I was always strong in the sciences and math, so I wanted to get into engineering. I was always a little bit of a nerd, which is a good thing. And I'm also good at communicating between people on a team that I work with. So all of those skills came together into me designing websites and building websites and programming.
Thank you. Let's go to Ms. Timmermans' room.
When making the coding activities possible for kids on the internet, did they have to use coding to make them in the first place?
Definitely. So if you were to go to code.org, it's code.org, right?
Yeah.
And you were to right-click on that web page, and you were to go to Inspect Element or Show Web Developer Tools, you would see all of the code behind that website. So yeah, there's a lot of code that goes into learning how to code on those websites. Someone just like me wrote all the code behind the scenes, and you guys can see that.
Thank you. Ms. Baldwin, student 1 is in Ms. Zimmerman's room.
What does a day at your job look like?
I'm sorry, can you ask that one more time?
What does a day at your job look like?
What does a day at my job look like? Well, I've had programming jobs where I go and clock in every day at an office. Now I have a job where I work remotely, so I can work from a home office like this. I am on Skype calls or Google Hangout calls and writing emails and phone calls to my teammates every day. So I keep the communication process open. But I work from home. Sometimes I work from coffee shops like Starbucks or other local coffee shops. I plug in my headphones and put music on when I'm in a loud coffee shop, and I kind of plug in and I zone out everything else. And I have some coffee or some espresso. I get my nice caffeine fix, and I start programming away. So it's a very enjoyable work day for me. I really like my schedule, and you know, if you get into programming, a lot of jobs will allow you to work remotely. It's really neat. There's a lot of freedom in it.
And Charlie has our next question.
How long did it take to study coding, and why did you start coding?
Let's see. You know, some people, if they pick things up, they can learn a lot in you know, just half a year, and they could probably get a job programming and making websites after that. Some people it takes longer. I'm one of those people that it took a little bit longer. I've been working on programming for about 6 to 7 years, and you know, generally speaking, a lot of people take 5 to 10 years to become an expert or a master in something. So, you know, you can learn something after a year if you guys keep it up on these websites and these resources that Mrs. Pack has given you. You can do some pretty cool stuff right away. But I would say after 5 to 10 years, someone becomes very good at what they do.
Thank you. And back over to Ms. Zimmerman's room.
Why do you believe more people in the city should learn about coding? What steps do we have to take to make more people learn about coding?
Well, I think it's really cool what your classes are doing. Mrs. Pack told me you guys are putting together papers to influence your school to bring in more coding into the curriculum. That's awesome. Like we talked about a little bit before, but coding helps you learn in all of the other sciences and English and math and history, all these things that you do. Coding influences all that. And some of that is direct knowledge that you have, and some of that is in gaining critical thinking skills. I think that's a big takeaway, is when you learn to program and code, you develop critical thinking skills that are going to help you in the rest of your studies. So I think that would be a good takeaway for you kids.
Thank you. And we're going to stay in Ms. Zimmerman's room for Mia's question.
What is the salary range for a coding expert?
You know, I don't want to talk about specific numbers too much. I do want to say that it's good. It's very good. I would say, you know, out of all the friend groups that I have, that programming makes one of the higher salary ranges. So that's great. You know, a lot of programmers can make salaries in the 6 figures. very often. So I think that's enough detail on that for you.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
All right, we'll go over to this side for a question from Paula. Paula in here? Okay, come on up, Paula.
How can you create a website using coding?
Did you ask how do you create a website using coding?
Yes.
Okay. So the main languages that you use for a simple website are HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Okay. And if you build a more complex website, there's other languages involved. But what I would recommend for any of you kids that want to create your own website, you could create a WordPress website. WordPress is a common blog system, and you can go in and you can create pages. You can customize web pages. You can get different themes to make your website so it looks different. So you can get something up and running soon, and then over time you can start jumping into the code and customizing it even more. So that's what I would do. You want to learn HTML primarily, and if you want to jump in and build your own website, then I would use WordPress.
Thank you. We have time for one last question. So I am looking at the questions that were submitted, and Jacqueline Hodge in Mrs. Zimmerman's room. Could you maybe ask your question for us so we can use that as our closing?
Yeah, she's coming up.
Okay, thank you.
What are some perks of being in the coding field?
I'm sorry, can you ask that one more time? I didn't understand that.
What are some perks of being in the coding field?
Can the teacher there maybe clarify that for me? I'm sorry.
That's fine. What are some perks about being in the field of coding or being a computer
sure.
engineer?
Sure. I'm sorry I didn't understand that.
Okay.
Here's what I would say the main perks are. First of all, a great salary, great pay, the ability to be challenged and be learning on a regular basis. I get less bored in my job than some of my friends do because they're not learning every day. I have the freedom to work remotely from home or from coffee shops or to live anywhere that I want to live while keeping a job, and it's rewarding because I'm creating something that people touch and feel every day. So those are the perks that I enjoy most about my job.
Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Richardson, and taking time out of your day. I know that you have a really busy schedule, so we appreciate your answering our questions. So thank you.
Thank you.
It was fun interacting with you kids.
So, Ms. Zimmerman's room, if you want to wave goodbye, we'll go ahead and close our video chat. And Ms. Baldwin students, Thank you, Mr. Richardson. We'll see you again at noon for our second hangout.
Sounds good. See you.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.